Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio here on Westville Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and on our first half hour this morning, we get to chat with the actor, director, playwright, and founder of the Gold Dust Orphans, well-known fringe theater company from Boston and P-Town and shows in New York, Ryan Landry. And Ryan is known for acting, directing, and playwriting. Not only his own works for the Gold Dust Orphans, and one of my favorite of all time was Legally Blind, the Helen Keller musical way back, but also has written plays that have been done at major regional theaters like the Huntington Theater in Boston. But during the pandemic, Ryan turned to painting, and his current works that are created during the pandemic are about to go on display at the William Basic Fine Arts Gallery in Northampton, where they'll be on display throughout the month of October. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Mark.
It's great to see you.
I'm reporting live from bed.
I think that is too cool. I also say that there was a period of time when you were summering, I would say, or falling or wintering in our neighborhood. Didn't you at one point live on the Congamon Lakes?
I lived on Pequot Pond.
Yeah.
In Westfield.
That's right. But anyway, what made you turn to painting, and how did you get this exhibition going? How long did it take you to create the number of works that you're doing?
Oh, well, I actually got an extra year to work on everything because of COVID, because I was supposed to have the opening last year at this time. And so I had worked on the idea for a while, but I didn't know that I was actually going to do it again, like that it would be scheduled for the next year, only because no one knows anything these days. And I just kind of put it onto the back burner. And then William, my friend, who is the gallery director and owner, who asked me to do the solo show, said, I hope you're ready for your opening. And I'm like, so I went back in and got all the work done before a week from tomorrow. Yeah.
It's you've been painting through the pandemic rather prolifically. How did you choose the particular paintings that you're going to use in the exhibit?
Well, and the exhibit is very different from what I usually do because I do a lot of landscapes and seascapes and portraits. Though most of the works that you'll see in the opening and at the show at Williams Gallery are portrait in nature. Everything has to do with Hollywood because I'm a huge Hollywood nut and I would much rather live in the movies of the 30s than today. And so I picked some of my favorite images. Of course, Barbra Streisand and Greta Garbo weren't available to pose for me, so I had to use photographic references. But then I got into this idea of wanting to make the paintings look like celluloid stills. And I think I've achieved it through something called art resin, which you pour onto the painting after it's dry, and it creates a glass-like finish at the top, as the top layer in the front, and it really does pop the colors out and make things a little 3D. So I'm a Technicolor nut too. I love all the films in Technicolor. So this is exciting for me to do something totally different, not really Provincetown influenced, but more just influenced by the great Hollywood films that I love.
Now you've done some art exhibitions before in Provincetown, I believe, because I've been following a lot of the stuff that you do on Facebook. How do you? You're a playwright and a director, and now you're dabbling in another form of the arts. So when you put on a play, you get applause. Hopefully, if the play is good or your performance is good. How can you gauge the reaction of people when they look at your paintings?
Well, that's why that's so funny you bring that up, because it's one of my favorite things to talk about with theater being comedy being the highest form of art, in my opinion, because you know, if you don't get the laugh, you know you're wrong, where everything else is sort of like gray areas, including painting and other and sculpture and other things that you leave in the room and let people respond the way they want. I like a response. So but at the same time, you know, I have painted all my life. I just stopped when I started writing plays, but I also just put out a rock album that I wrote all the music to, all original music, called The Vamps, with two P's, VAMPPS, which is a rock album which will be part of the soundtrack for a musical I'm writing about gay vampires. So, yeah, I don't limit myself to one art form. I think that we all have an enormous potential as human beings. And I think the worst thing any parent or peer can do when a kid is like in middle school to high school is discourage any form of creativity whatsoever, because they lead to other forms of creativity. So for instance, I'm not a big fan of graffiti on the sides of buildings, but I know and love some graffiti art. And I think that, you know, you just have to allow your spirit and your soul to do what it needs to do to move on. And for myself, I can't move on during the day unless I get a song out of my head, or unless I paint a picture, or unless I write some joke down or something. So we're all different, but that's how I operate.
So, in terms of your creative life, did painting come before theater?
Well, I went to School of Visual Arts and in the Academy in New York, but yes, it did. But once I got turned on to Charles Ludlam, who was a great playwright, a gay playwright, and who died in '86 of AIDS. Once I got turned on to him and his company, there was no turning back. I had to go into theater, and COVID forced me to stop doing theater, and that's why I can't sit around. I do live on the beach, but I'm not a beach bunny. I don't lay there and bake, and I can't not do something. So I just turned to painting because I knew it, and it was very solitary, and my husband kept feeding me and bringing me drinks while I was doing it. So that worked out well.
It's always important to have food and drink when painting. Uh,
Yeah.
it's odd that you mentioned Charles Ludlam because his play, The Mystery of Irma Vep, is being done here in the area right now
Oh, great.
at Silverthorne Theater. But what attracted you? You said that Ludlam was your inspiration. The Gold Dust Orphans, which you co-founded, has been around about 25 years, if I'm correct.
Oh, you're 30 years. But I've founded it because I knew that I'm a weirdo and no one is going to hire me as like a leading man because I'm too fey, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. So I said, screw it. I'm just going to write my own plays and do my own things, and people will come or they won't, and the people came. So thank you, people who came when I first started.
And it's really expanded. I mean, not only you started, I'm not sure whether you started in P-Town or Boston, but the Goldust Orphans do both. And there have been shows that have moved on to New York. So you've got a national following, and you've worked with people like Varla Jean Merman, for example, who's very well known.
Anytime.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of great collaborators in the kind of work that you do.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I have a lot of friends, and I'm surrounded by talented people who love me and I love them, and it all works out quite well. I think that that's the biggest tip I would give to anyone just starting is gather around the people that you trust, and especially if you're doing comedy like I do, that you laugh with, and you have had fights with, and you make up with, and you won't go wrong if you surround yourself with equally passionate people who all want the same thing you do, which is to make the audience laugh.
Are the Gold Dust Orphans doing anything upcoming? I know the
You know it, Toots.
yeah,
The
the
Christmas show is coming up. It opens December 2nd, A Grinchly Christmas Carol, which is a mashup between, of course, The Christmas Carol and How the Grinch stole Christmas.
And that'll be in Boston, correct?
In Boston, our brand new, huge and airy theater, the Iron Wolf Theater, which is upstairs at the Lithuanian Citizens Association, or Lithuanian Hall in South Boston. It's where we did Christmas on Uranus a couple of years ago, and it's just terrific. It's just an old, beautiful old building, but they've renovated a bunch of stuff, which I'm not a fan of renovation. I like, anything from before 1965. But anyway, they have renovated a lot of it. And just a note to anyone who plans on buying tickets, we require proof of vaccination at the door. And we'll be spacing people out depending on big parties, so that because it's such a big place, that we're just, safety is in mind, not just having fun.
Now, during the course of this summer, as the arts and theater were starting to come back, were you able to do any shows this summer? And was it really difficult to go back to live performance after having not done it for a year and a half?
No, it wasn't difficult because I've kind of lived my life performing, and I did Showgirls all summer long, and that was fantastic. HBO came and filmed it, and then another independent film features Showgirls actually in the script about this guy that enters Showgirls. So I had a lot on my plate this year, and it was fantastic. And there's many more kind people than there are idiots and creeps out there. And I think that has been shown to me over and over again. So I'm just grateful for that, and all the people who've been so supportive of me all these years.
We're going to take a fast break here because we have underwriters to acknowledge. We're chatting with Ryan Landry, best known for his theatrical work and satire and fringe theater with the Gold Dust Orphans, but he's become quite the accomplished painter. His works will be shown and on exhibit at the William Basic Fine Arts Gallery in Northampton throughout the month of October. You can find out information at that at wbfinearts.com. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll return after these messages.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley, with convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut. Visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We're broadcasting from Studio 120 on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to replay it, it's archived on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio. My guest this first half hour is Ryan Landry, best known as the playwright, director, and actor with the Gold Dust orphans, but he's got quite the career going as a visual artist, and his works are on display the month of October at the William Basic Fine Arts Gallery in downtown Northampton. And Ryan, you're the first person I've ever interviewed that's been lying in bed.
Well, Mark, I do my best work in bed.
Ha ha ha.
No, I just I was up all night because William it was like, "Where's the work?" And I'm like, "Oh, I have to get this resin on all these paintings," and the resin didn't come in until yesterday, so we were up all night resining paint, like doing that thing on the paintings, and then I have to rush them up to Northampton. So I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. And I think it's rather chic to lie in bed. And
I think so. I mean, I think it's really incredible. How long does it take you from the time you decide let's say you're going to do a painting of Barbra Streisand? How long does it take from the point that you think about it until the painting is finished? And then as you're painting, do you revise and revamp, or do you have to go in terms of your technique from beginning right to end?
Well, I think if I may toot my own horn, Rudy, toot, toot, toot. My biggest strength is in color. And so I focus a lot on color. It takes a while. It takes a couple weeks. It depends on the image. If it's a very busy image or a very simple image. For instance, I did a Judy Garland one where you just see Judy and some light things, and that didn't take me long at all because most of it is black because she's backstage. But there's other ones. This one I did of from Oliver Twist, of the beetle dragging Oliver through the streets of London, which is very involved, and actually didn't make it into the show because I couldn't finish it in time.
You've done a lot of portraiture of Hollywood, but I think somewhere along the way, if I remember correctly, you did a portrait of the Academy of Music Theater in Northampton.
Yes. It's one of my favorites. I'm very proud of that painting. And I think it actually still is on display at Williams Gallery in Northampton. And I'm very proud of that painting. I love that painting. And I love the Academy of Music. I love the building especially.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what attracted you to that particular building?
It's classic. It's classic look and feel. And I mean, I think it's hilarious that hilarious and tragic, the way architecture is moving today, especially in Boston. You'll see these modern buildings. They look like they're made out of Legos. And I mean, I'm not a minimalist. I don't believe in minimalism. I think it's kind of a cop-out. Though I do love, some mid-century modern design and things like that. For the most part, I don't understand why we can do the things we do, and yet we can't build a machine that can carve a perfect gargoyle so that we can place them on you have to rebuild a classic building, like rebuild it exact. I mean, there's so much beauty in architecture. So I love that building. I think it's also kind of hilarious. It's got that crappy, electric sign. What are those things called?
The marquee. Yeah.
That marquee thing, it's kind of gross, but I mean, hey, the building's still standing and it's still beautiful. And I think I put something across the marquee that said, like, please don't let me turn into a Starbucks.
Do you have an online gallery or a website where people can look at your work?
Yeah, it doesn't have everything on it for some reason. We can't fit any more paintings on it, but it's called Ryan Landry, RyanLandry Factory, like a factory, or Andy Warhol Factory.com. So RyanLandryFactory.com.
And can people buy originals or prints?
Unfortunately, you can buy prints, but I'm not really pleased with the printers. I'm looking for better printers. These prints don't come out well, so I don't suggest that people buy them until we get a better printer, and I'm still in search of that. As far as the paintings go, everything is sold. So it's a great problem to have, I know, but some of my stuff sells in like 15 minutes after posting it, which I'm very happy about. And, it's brought financial, blessings to me in a time when I was really scared that, that I would just stop making money. I didn't know what I would do. And I've never gone for unemployment or any of that. I've always figured like there's some job I can do, I can work. But luckily the paintings have sold well.
So you've got this exhibit at the William Basic Fine Arts Gallery, and you've got some other stuff cataloged online that people can visit and look at. Do you think you want to do more exhibitions down the road? And do you think you'll go in directions other than capturing Hollywood? You'd mentioned landscape, and certainly the Academy of Music is a really great photo. I shouldn't say photograph, but capturing of architecture. Do you have other exhibitions planned or in mind?
Well, theater's coming back, so I have to get back to that eventually. And as far as exhibitions go, I don't know. We'll see how things go. I love William. He's a very nice person. And so we'll see how it goes. I mean, to be quite honest, like I can sell my own work. I don't need a gallery, but I like the idea of a gallery also. And as I said, William's been kind. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I mean, what I do love is the fact that I was able to do whatever kind of show I wanted. William told me not to really go into regional stuff, meaning like Academy of Music and then like downtown North, because people don't really buy that much. They buy it from like online or so. Yeah, he explained it. So that's why I didn't do, because I love Northampton. I could have done a whole Northampton, landscape show, but I wanted to do something different, and he allowed that. So I'm really proud of these Hollywood paintings. The next show, I guess, shows what they are is they have themes, and I'm not really a themey kind of queen, but I'll go for it. So if I do another show, it would have a different theme. I guess, is that the answer to your question?
Yeah. And also, you got a chance during the pandemic or post-pandemic to do a little bit of traveling. I mean, you just came back from a great vacation.
It wasn't exactly a vacation, Mark, because it was bizarre. Like it had to do with tomatoes. It was the greatest tomatoes of Europe, but there wasn't much to do with tomato. It was a very weird trip, but it was all expenses paid.
Well, that's the most
important.
And
I went to Santorini.
Yeah, I was going to say, you really got out of town, so to speak. So can we expect some Greek island paintings to come out of you in the future? Were you inspired at all by some of the things you saw?
I think a lot of that Greek architecture, it's just so fantastically beautiful. It reminds me of De Chirico, like that sort of like, but the problem is Santorini is not like De Chirico, because those are very like, lonesome and the focus is on one thing, and it's, but in Santorini, which is a very popular tourist place, it's like you can't swing a cat without hitting, 3 Germans, 2 Italians, an Englishman, and 5 Americans, because it's so crowded with people. But if you can look at the architecture away from people and just the beauty of the shapes, it's pretty incredible. I love it.
I have not been to Santorini, but I've been in the Greek islands, and there's something about the color of the sky and the sun that changes the landscape, whether it's sunrise to midday to sunset. The changing of the colors was really exciting to me, and it's something that I don't think that we see every day here in Western Massachusetts or
let's not
P-Town.
Not downplay the beauty of Western Massachusetts.
I'm not. But I mean, there was something about the blue sky and the sun in the islands that was just incredible.
Hey, are you guys having a mosquito problem right now?
Not at the moment in the studio, but there's certainly one in the neighborhood.
Oh my God, in Provincetown, it's bonkers. We can't sit outside. It's the mosquito. I think it's some sort of like one of those disaster films from the early 70s. I think the mosquitoes are going to take over.
Well,
I
you
hope
know, I try to walk twice a day, once at dawn and towards the end of the day, and I come home at night just bitten, and that is the only reason that I am looking forward to the first frost, which they say
me too.
mid-October, and then we can just coast through the rest of fall with glorious colors. You know, Ryan, we're out of town, but I hope everybody gets a chance this October to go see your work on display at William Basic Fine Arts
Oh,
Gallery.
Mark, I just wanted to say one last thing. I'm getting a hair transplant the day before the opening.
Okay.
So I think I might have a bloody bandage on my head at the opening, but isn't that chic?
That
And
is totally
it'll be
chic.
so Van Gogh, you know. So get ready for that bloody bandage. I hope it looks.
I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see the artwork and get a chance to see you again. It's been way, way too long. Ryan Landry, thanks for joining us. You can find Ryan's work at the William Basic Fine Arts Gallery during the month of October. We're going to take a break to acknowledge underwriters, and we'll be back with more Artsbeat, so don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com. Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone, to Artsbeat TV and Radio here on 89.5 FM WSKB and Westfield Community Programming Channel 15. We're going to zoom down Interstate 91 to Hartford and the Bushnell. Collette Hall is going to talk to us from the Hartford Symphony Orchestra. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
How you doing?
We're doing well. We are busy and getting ready for our first concerts back since March of 2020. So we're excited, and there's lots of preparations happening, but we are so ready to be back doing concerts and making music.
You all were lucky enough to be able to do some outdoor concerts this summer with the Talcott Mountain Music Festival, which I believe celebrated its 25th year this year. And now Hartford Symphony is about to launch again at the Bushnell. It's of interest to a lot of people here in Westfield and Greater Springfield because our symphony orchestra is paused right now. It has not announced a return to programming this year, although its musicians, known as MOSO, the musicians of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, are planning a concert October 15th at Symphony Hall with their maestro Kevin Rhodes. Carolyn Kwan is the conductor and music director of the Hartford Symphony. She has a history here in the Valley. She went to Northfield Mount Hermon School and Smith College, and she's been on the podium for quite a while in Hartford. And what kind of season do you all have planned in terms of the Masterworks series?
We have a wonderful lineup, and our music director, Carolyn, is actually conducting an opera in London. So for our first concert, we'll have a guest conductor joining us, Joseph Young, and he is the music director of the Berkeley Symphony, our artistic director of ensembles for Peabody Conservatory, and resident conductor of the National Youth Orchestra, USA, at Carnegie Hall. So he'll be a wonderful guest to get the season started. Our first program is titled Beethoven 7, and it begins on Friday, October 1st. We have concerts on Friday and Saturday at 8 p.m. and then Sunday at 3 p.m., all held in Belding Theater at the Bushnell. This program, I think, will be just a spectacular return to the stage for the Hartford Symphony. We're going to put things very quickly into motion with Racine's William Tell Overture, which has the familiar Lone Ranger theme at the end of the piece. So just to really get everybody up and moving right away. And then we'll be featuring a work by Brazilian-American composer Clarice Assad. She'll join us as a vocalist on the work, and it features some audience participation like singing, whispering, humming, and it's the piece is called A Goal, and it's about a Brazilian soccer player, Marta Vieira da Silva, widely known as possibly the best female soccer player of all time. And the piece is designed to give you an idea of what happens inside the mind of a great soccer player as they're preparing for the big game. And then the final work on the program is Beethoven's 7th Symphony, praised as possibly the greatest music ever written. It's really a fantastic, majestic, innovative for his time piece by Beethoven, and has just become a beloved work for Masterworks audiences. So again, those are running October 1st through the 3rd at the Bushnell.
And we got to say, most of you that are listening now or watching, go to the Bushnell for your Broadway. It's the only place to see big Broadway, and that's the Mortensen Hall, which is a very large theater. But the Belding Theater, where the Hartford Symphony performs, is much more intimate.
Yes, it is. The Mortensen Hall for the Broadway show seats up to 2,800 people. For our Belding Theater Masterworks performances, it's a smaller of about 900 person capacity. Having sat in most of the seats myself for a concert at one point or another, I can truly say there's no bad seat in the house. You really feel like you're in the action no matter where you are. And so it's really a great concert hall.
Yeah, and not to put the Mortensen Hall down, because there's been some great music and everything there, but or Springfield Symphony Hall, which is a large hall. But when you sit in the Belding, I went to see a performance that Hartford Symphony did. It was a thing about Faust, and it was it had a little bit of theater in it as well. It was, if I recall, it was staged by Eric Ort from TheaterWorks, and had some actors, and I was probably in the last row or two, but it felt like, you could see every movement of every musician, which you miss when you're in a large hall. So you guys are really lucky to have an intimate space like that, that's large enough for a full symphony, but small enough that it's like being in your living room.
Yes, we are extremely lucky to have that space available to us. And I know when they built the hall that they really had the orchestra in mind in that space. So like you said, it's great that we can fit a full-size orchestra, symphony orchestra in that space, but still really feel like it's a wonderful thing for, a close experience within the orchestra.
Collette, what are some of the other fall offerings that are available on the Masterworks?
So after October, our next concert is in November, the 5th through the 7th, and that's Bernstein and Copeland. And music director Carolyn Kwan will be joining us back for that program to lead the orchestra. It features Copeland's Rodeo for Dance episodes, a very famous ballet that he wrote, and it has the Beef What's for Dinner music in it, if you're familiar. So that's the hoedown. It just really tries to capture the American West at that time. So that'll be the start of the program. Then HSO concertmaster Leonard Segal will be our soloist for Wynton Marsalis's violin concerto. We'll be doing the final two movements of that selection, Blues and Hootenanny. So there's a bit of a American West theme throughout the program. Then we'll have Bernstein's West Side Story symphonic dances, based on the wonderful musical that it, has just become such a piece of American history. And then we'll close the program with Laura Cartman's All-American. And Laura Cartman is a fantastic composer. She's won Grammys, been nominated for Emmys, and she's just done a ton of concert music, as well as very celebrated small screen and large screen film music, and actually a lot of video game scores as well.
It's interesting that you're doing the West Side Story suite, because Steven Spielberg is coming out with a new film for the holidays, a film version of West Side. I can't wait to see it. I mean, I can't say that I saw the original on Broadway, but I've seen recreations of it over the years. And it's just a brilliant score. And that symphonic pieces that he actually was alive and developed. It wasn't something put together after he passed away, but he developed it. It's a stunning piece of orchestral music when you hear it away from the theater.
It really is. And the symphonic dances, it's kind of like a medley. It's kind of like excerpts from the full musical, but it works so well for concert orchestra. It really features such versatile playing and virtuosic playing from all areas of the orchestra. It just feels almost like it should have been a concert piece to start out. You wouldn't know that it was something where he took inspiration from the musical. So it's really fabulous.
It's also a showstopper for any orchestra. There is a video out there on YouTube, and I don't know what orchestra it is. It's a European orchestra where the audience and the musicians go wild during the course of that. And I think it's the Dance at the Gym segment from it.
Yeah.
And to me, it shows just the exuberance of hearing symphonic music at its best. I mean, it's the kind of thing you can't sit still when you get that. So then we're leading sort of from November into December and the holidays.
Yes. So we do have a December Masterworks program that's Tchaikovsky and Grieg. So we'll have Venezuelan pianist Gabriela Martinez performing Grieg's Piano Concerto, Opus 16, one of the most recognizable piano concerto openings throughout classical music, and really just a majestic piece. We'll also have some music from Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker. Specifically, there's a part at the end of the first act where the clock strikes 12 and the toys start to come alive and they're battling each other. And it's some really special music that doesn't get played as frequently with symphonic orchestras. Typically, if you are hearing Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker with an orchestra, you're hearing a suite version. So again, it's something where he kind of chose selected movements. But this is actually from the full ballet. So you get to hear some music that you may not normally hear with a symphony orchestra from that work. And then the start of the program will also be music by Grieg from the Peer Gynt suites.
And actually, people that hear the Peer Gynt suite, that music's very familiar.
Yes, yeah. It has the Morning Mood and In the Hall of the Mountain King are included in that work. I'm sure, I'd be surprised to find someone who hasn't heard those pieces somewhere in their lives.
And it's interesting because the West Side Story suite is derived from music that Leonard Bernstein wrote for a Broadway musical. And the Peer Gynt suite is music that Edvard Grieg wrote for Ibsen's play originally. And yet it's been separated from the play and turned into a symphonic thing. And most people tend, in this case, to know the music more than the play Peer Gynt, because Peer Gynt is so rarely performed now. But it's a fantasy. Mm-hmm. It's a fantasy.
Yes, yeah. It all has an element of sort of magical realism kind of thing with this program, between the Nutcracker and the toys coming to life, and the Peer Gynt and having that aspect as well.
Now, I know that the symphony season goes all the way into next June, but you also have some pops and chamber music and things like that, and a website that describes all of it. So how can people find out more about what's going on at the Hartford Symphony?
thanks for mentioning that. Yes, our website is always open. It's hartfordsymphony.org. You can find all the information for the programs we've already discussed online, as well as our entire season. You can also call our box office at 860-987-5900 Monday through Friday, and Saturdays with some limited hours as well.
Collette, we're going to take a quick break to acknowledge the underwriters that make this kind of programming like Artsbeat possible on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. We want to welcome those of our viewers and listeners that are now watching on Southwick's Community Programming Channel 15. If you've missed a part of today's program or you want to rewind and hear it again, it'll be stored on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll return with Collette Hall from the Hartford Symphony after these announcements.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardie siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating. Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We're chatting with Collette Hall from the Hartford Symphony Orchestra, whose season begins very soon and runs all the way through the year with performances at the Belding Theater at the Bushnell. It's the intimate theater space next door to the theater where they have all the big Broadway shows. And if you go to the Bushnell, you know there's plenty of free parking when you go. It's an easy on and off of Interstate 91 and about a half an hour max from Westfield, and so it is a very fun place to go see a show and hear a concert and all that. Collette, how did you get involved with the Hartford Symphony?
I originally joined the Hartford Symphony when I moved to Hartford to attend the University of Hartford. I did my doctorate in saxophone performance there. Started out working in the box office as a ticket service representative to help pay for school, and have just seen a lot, done a lot for the symphony over the past 10 years now.
So when I have people on representing orchestras that aren't necessarily a player in the orchestra at the moment, people wonder what your job, what do you do at the Hartford Symphony? Because people are always curious what it takes to put on a concert.
Sure. So my role as the Director of Artistic Operations is really to oversee all of our programming and productions from conception to the stage. But there's a lot that falls into that, everything from working with musicians. For example, I've been working very closely with our Player Safety Committee for health and safety guidelines to get everybody back to the stage and make sure we're comfortable and safe. Things like developing what our programs are for the season and working with our music director, Carolyn Kwan, to provide support for her in programming our Masterworks, working on our POPs programs, the day-to-day of budgeting and communicating with the orchestra and pooling all the resources that we have available for producing our concerts. So there's a lot that goes into it, a lot of communication, a lot of kind of synthesizing different ideas and then bringing large groups of people together to put the concerts on stage.
And you guys, in terms of your administrative production team, are rather lean and mean. There's not a lot of you, so you have to, I would assume, wear lots of hats.
Yes, I think we are definitely lean and mean, but a really great group of administrative staff members here. I'm lucky to have my production manager, Charlie Freitag, with me. He has some experience prior working with the Hartford stage. And then, just a lot of cross-departmental collaborations, talking with Amanda Savio, our marketing and PR senior manager, and, working with our development team, Ruth Sabronsky, director of development, to put together donor events, to do special behind the scenes looks at how the orchestra works for our donors and sponsors. It's really a team effort here, and everybody just works together so well. And that's, one of the biggest reasons that I've been at the Symphony for as long as I have, is just the wonderful people who work here.
Everybody I've met at Hartford Symphony has been delightful. So I envied the fact that you work in a great workspace. I know that you all had to shut down operations when COVID closed all the theaters and concert halls, and that all of us in the arts industry are returning to live performance very carefully and cautiously. What kind of mandates are in place, and what have you had to develop to put 50 to 75 musicians on stage and fill 900 people in the audience?
So there's, like you said, that's just a large group of people to think about and making sure that we're being safe. So we've worked very closely with the Bushnell in following what their policies are for the venue as well. Right now, vaccination is required unless you have a medical or religious exemption, or if you're a child under the age of 12, since vaccines are not available for that age group yet. For those who are not vaccinated, they can provide a proof of a negative PCR test within 72 hours of the performance time. So when you arrive to the Bushnell for an HSO performance or any performance right now, you should have your vaccination proof or your PCR negative test results, as well as your ID. So those are being checked for all of the audience members that enter the building. And we have very similar protocol that have been developed backstage as well, where the orchestra, crew, staff are also fully vaccinated, providing proof of that information to keep everyone safe. There are also mask mandates in place at this point, both with the Bushnell, but also the city of Hartford has an executive order in place to have masks indoors in a public space, regardless of your vaccination status. So everyone who enters the building will have a mask on at all times. The only exceptions to that being if, you're taking a sip of water, or if you're a trumpet player on the stage who can't wear a mask while you're playing. And in those cases, we're adding additional distancing whenever possible to make sure that the spaces, there's appropriate spacing. The Bushnell has also done some significant upgrades to their air handling system. They're using the MERV 13 filters that are recommended. They have touchless amenities throughout the building, such as ticket scanning kiosks, hand sanitizing stations, touchless sinks and toilets, soap and paper towel dispensers. And there's been so much thought and very careful planning from the Bushnell and from the HSO to make sure that our performances can be safe for everyone and to attend.
And I understand that there's certain social distancing on stage, like two violinists might be able to sit 10 feet apart, but the brass instruments and the wind instruments have to be farther apart. So I guess the way things are now, it would preclude the Hartford Symphony or any other orchestra from doing a major instrumental and choral type of work like Carmina Burana, where you have 200 singers on stage. That's just out of the question.
Right now, that is definitely a difficult concert program to put together. I believe it was the Met did a choral program to open their season, but here in Hartford, we're not ready to undertake that yet. Like you said, we do have some additional distancing on stage. You'll see musicians, strings, percussion, piano, harp, keep their masks on while they're performing. So again, we're trying to do everything we can to keep everybody really safe and to observe as many of the social distancing, masking, vaccination, recommended CDC guidelines as we possibly can.
How many musicians make up the Hartford Symphony Orchestra?
We have a contracted roster of 86 musicians in total, and then we do have a very large network of substitute and extra musicians that is, I think, somewhere upwards of 200 musicians that live throughout the area.
So some in a typical concert, you'd have like 50 perhaps or 80. How does that usually work out?
It scales up and down sometimes depending on the repertoire. For our very first program starting October 1st, you'll see an orchestra size of about 50 to 60 musicians on the stage. For our second program in November, it'll be a larger group, and that will be closer to probably 80 or so musicians on stage.
And some of the other programs besides the Masterworks, what are some of the other series that you'll be offering this year? I know everything's on the website, but
yes,
give us a preview.
So we also have our pop series returning for this season. We'll start in December with our Holiday Cirque Spectacular family fan favorite that's been in Hartford for several years now, where we're joined by Cirque de la Symphony. So it's Cirque du Soleil style performers that you'll see doing all kinds of acrobatic feats, both on the stage and in the air above the stage while the orchestra performs holiday music. So that will be on December 11th. That's a Saturday, 2 performances at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. And that program is in the Mortensen Hall, the larger theater at the Bushnell. And then we also have our Sunday Serenades program series is returning. That's a chamber music series that's held at the Wadsworth Athenaeum. The performances are in Avery Court and are directed by our concertmaster, Leonard Segal. So he performs on the selections as well as members of the HSO throughout the sections, repertoire dependent.
So it's a busy schedule, and then you don't get a vacation really, because after the main season is over in June, you go back to Talcott Mountain to do a summer pops.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're definitely going to be busy in the fall and especially in the spring as our series continues through the end of June with our Masterworks programming and Pops programming. And then, as you said, we go back to our Talcott home for the month of July for typically mostly pop style programming and some classical and patriotic music as well.
In comparison with the other orchestras, I'm sure you're in touch with the other orchestras of the size of Hartford Symphony around the country. Have all the other orchestras pretty much gone back to programming and performances, or is Hartford a kind of a trailblazer?
I think we've seen that happen in different areas. So depending where you are in the country, obviously there have been different protocols and level of shutdown or safety measures that are put in place. So some orchestras in the South and out West continue to perform during the pandemic, especially those locations that have warmer weather throughout the year, kind of took advantage of outdoor programming. Unfortunately, we don't have that here in Hartford. So in our area, we've seen other organizations return to the stage. I wouldn't say we're necessarily a trailblazer, but maybe one of the larger group in terms of symphonic orchestras nationwide, but we're one of the larger groups in the area who's getting ready to make the return to stage with the Bushnell reopening the doors for their programming as well.
And the Bushnell's other series and things start around the same time that Hartford Symphony comes back. So their Broadway is returning and some of their other special events.
Yes, exactly.
And Hartford Stage will have its marquee open, and TheaterWorks has kind of been chugging along the entire time, although they've been outdoors. So Hartford's cultural scene is robust again, I guess we could say.
Yes, I think everybody tried to do as much as they could during the past 18 months, whether the programs moved outdoors, were in reduced capacities, were online. There's a lot of virtual programming, both from the Hartford Symphony, but also from other arts organizations in the area. So We haven't been, most of us haven't been fully closed during the past 18 months, but we're now ready to have live audiences again. We miss it so much. So we're so excited.
So those of us that go to theater, I'm a theater reporter. The idea of being able to go back into a theater after all this time has been just so wonderful. You can't put it on words. Before we run, Collette, give everybody the phone numbers and the website so people can learn more about Hartford Symphony Orchestra. And I personally follow Hartford Symphony Orchestra on Facebook, and you can too.
Yes. So the best way to find us is always online at hartfordsymphony.org. Our box office, you can also call at 860-987-5900. And as Mark mentioned, we are on Facebook and Instagram as well. So look for us on social media at Hartford Symphony.
Collette Hall from the Hartford Symphony Orchestra. Thanks for being here this morning, Collette. You were here last summer, and I hope we get into the season, you'll come back and chat more about what's coming up in the winter and spring.
I would love to do that. Thanks so much for having me, Mark.
Thanks so much. And this wraps up another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio here on Westfield Community Programming, Channel 15, and now Southwick Community Programming, Channel 15, and 89.5 FM WSKB. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. If you missed a part of today's program or want to catch it again or hear and listen to some of the other things we've done, all of the Artsbeats are archived on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio. We'll catch you next week with another edition of Artsbeat. Have a good week.